Hello, I'm Victor Goodwin for MSW 510, and I'm doing my report on Black presentations on Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter started with the murder of Trayvon Martin by George Zimmerman. On February 26th, George Zimmerman stalked and murdered Trayvon Martin. They went to trial, and George Zimmerman was found not guilty because of the stand your ground laws in Florida. This sparked outrage in the nation because it's clearly that he stalked him and killed him, but that's an opinion. The state found him not guilty, but it was more than that. It was people were tired of Black lives meaning so little that with murders like Eric Gardner, Sandra Bland, Michael Brown, and Ferguson, people, white men killing black men, and more to the point, officers killing black people for selling cigarettes, CDs, a tail light, having a weapon with a license, and telling the officer he has a license. It started the outrage. Soon after the Trayvon Martin trial, the hashtag Black Lives Matter started to pop up. Um, you saw it on social media, and this was different. Years ago, we all every African American community knew of black men, brown men being murdered by the police and nothing happening, but maybe leave of absence, maybe them getting fired for their job, maybe getting relocated to somewhere else so they could harass brown people again. But this people had enough, and with social media, the message could be heard louder and to more people. Um, the hashtag started in 2013. It's been going for 6 years strong. Um, it was a big wave on the outset because it was something new to social media. But I can speak from personal experience that the murders you kind of get numb to them because you know what's going to happen over and over again. You see abuse of power, abuse of force, excess of force. A life is lost and the cop is acquitted. This happened. It hit close to home with me with Oscar Grant when he was murdered by a cop, police officer said he was reaching for his taser and he murdered him on the concrete at a bar station that I frequent in Oakland, California. And it's just been going on since before my time and probably on for a while. And since there is no repercussions for it, there's no reason for them to stop using excessive force. Um, so Black Lives Matter is a rallying cry that is turned into a movement. Like, this is different. This is just, I mean, it's just like the civil rights movement, Black Panther parties in the past, but it's easier to mobilize now because we don't have to send out a pamphlet. We don't have to have speeches because we all see this what's happening on social media. Thanks to social media, we see well, thanks and it's bittersweet because we can see what's happening in different parts of the country that we would normally not be privy to. Um, if Black Lives Matter, um, from the Black Lives Matter website, Black Lives Matter is a global network. It's chapter based, member led, organized, organization whose mission is to build local power and to intervene in violence afflicted on the black community by the state and vigilantes. It's far too long that police brutality has been prevalent in the African American community. We are over policed. Um, the police presence is heavy in my neighborhoods and any neighborhood of African American uh, African Americans over the U.S. and in other countries too. So it started as a protest, it's turned into a global movement. Um, these protests and sometimes riot are just a cry of frustration. You only can take so much into where people can't take it anymore. We saw it in LA with the riots after the Rodney King trial. We saw it in Ferguson, Oakland. A lot of these riots start off peaceful. There's been some evidence that people of different motives send people to instigate riots, but there's also psychology that says people in crowds behave differently. Um, this is really was just a message to yell as loud as possible. And when I say that, I mean people want their voices heard, that this is important because if you don't say it and if you don't disrupt traffic, if you don't protest, if you don't cause people to be uncomfortable, nothing ever gets felt. I've had a lot of conversations with people, well, white people, of why do you say Black Lives Matter? Don't all lives matter? And my answer is always yes. Yes, all lives matter. But it's Black Lives Matter getting murdered 2 times more than white people by the police. It's murders for getting skills, a tail light, or in the case of Lando, being a registered gun owner, telling the officer you're a registered gun owner, and still when you get murdered for having a gun on you. These crimes went unpunished, and that was the problem. Even though these crimes won't bring, even though justice won't bring these people back, it still gives you some kind of peace that you can't do that. Again, um, Black Lives Matter was started in 2013 by Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tomate Tomati. They started the movement. Since then, there's been backlash because America likes to change the negative narrative. Instead of Black Lives Matter, they said all lives matter because all lives are equally important. Blue Lives Matter happens because in response to Black Lives Matter because cops get murdered too. And what's worse is the age old tricks of the US government when black people unite, they want to make them the enemy like they did the Black Panthers. So in 2017, the FBI said that black identity extremists were the biggest threat to America. And in some ways it is because if people ever became unified under one banner, the government would have a problem. The hashtag has been used all over the world to show outrage of how black people are treated, even in other countries, and show solidarity with the movement. People are tired of this in England, Australia, any place where black people are populated, and we can see that they're being treated differently by the system. This is all comes from frustrations of years and years of decades, even probably centuries of an oppressive system that has been targeted black and brown people. Uh, I'm from Oakland, California, like I said, and I know too well about police brutality, and it's frustrating. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to work in education and social work myself, because I want to help make a change with things like this. I think the role of social work is to educate and understand. First of all, we must educate ourselves on movements like this and why movements like this are important and needed. Understanding because a lot of people don't get what they're saying. It's not Black Lives Matter only; it's Black Lives Matter also. Um, like I said, 2.5 people, a black person is 2.5 more times likely to be murdered by the police than white people, white counterparts. Um, we fill up the jails at an alarming rate. We're 12% of the population, and we're 45% of the prison population. We are the only as a U.S. state, we're the only population that is so grossly overrepresented in the prison system. Um, so I think it's our role as social work to to come on board with these type of movements and help with any way possible, such as, just doing what we do is leading people to the right, connecting people to the right areas and what they need, because a lot of the programs that Black Lives Matter, it's not all about, people think it's about the hashtag, but they're organizing teaching programs and education programs, food programs, and a lot of other things because of the donation they receive. Because I do appreciate Black Lives Matter because they had something, it took off, and then they flipped it into something else. It's not all about marching and making protests. It's about educating the youth, educating people on what's happening in their communities. And so that's a social program if I ever seen one. These are my references: Black Lives Matter, the website, Black Youth Joblessness, Another Side of Black Lives Matter, and the social media response to Black Lives Matter. Thank you.